Welcome to a new planetary and seismic update. We look at the SGI graph from the previous time frame, and you can see here with the full moon that we have most of the convergence in the first half of this time frame, from the 29th of June to the 1st of July, a high lunar peak here, because the moon was in opposition with Jupiter and Mercury. And it was followed by Earth, Mars, Uranus in a conjunction, some convergence here as well, which I covered in the previous update in detail. And we have the lunar peak that's today. Now let's have a look at the seismic activity that we had. Most of the stronger earthquakes, quite a convergence or quite a clustering of stronger earthquakes happened in this first half around the time of this lunar peak. 4 magnitude 6 earthquakes in just over 2 days, well above average. Then if we look at the time that Earth was in alignment here with Mars and Uranus, at first nothing much happened. I said later on the 4th, on the 5th, there was the potential for like a mid to high 6 magnitude earthquake. 5.8 here on the 5th, it stayed below the magnitude 6 range, very deep, almost 700 kilometers deep. This is not unusual for the Fiji region, by the way. And then we see additional stronger earthquakes, but they stayed in the higher 5 magnitude range, even this morning 5.8 in the Drake Passage. Now let's have a look at the next time frame. Mind the lunar peak here today. There is the potential for stronger seismic activity. It could be later today or tomorrow following this lunar peak. Then we have the upcoming time frame with considerable planetary conjunctions, convergence of planetary conjunctions. We have 2. The first here is on the 9th. This is really critical geometry, mind you, be on extra alert. We have Venus, Sun, Mars on the 9th, almost at the exact time that Venus is also in alignment with Mercury and Neptune. Large earthquakes, they tend to occur with a convergence of this kind of planetary geometry. It is followed by a lunar peak on the 11th, and that could be the time of really considerable seismic increase following the convergence here on the 9th. We have a second convergence of planetary geometry. Again, Venus, Mercury, Saturn in an alignment at the same time, almost at the same time that the Sun, Mercury and Earth are also in an alignment. So in both cases with Mercury and Venus in 2 planetary alignments converging, and both times we see that the convergence is followed by considerable lunar geometry, arguably the most critical lunar convergence here on the 14th at the time of the new moon. And then we also have a convergence of planetary and lunar geometry here on the 17th. But I really like to focus here on what happens on the 9th and also here on the 13th. So here on the 9th, let's have a look at the solar system. We have Venus, Mercury and Neptune in an alignment. Venus and Mercury both involved almost at the same time that Venus is in alignment with the Sun and Mars. This can be really critical geometry, and we can have pretty large seismic activity. This could easily trigger a high 7 or larger seismic event. Mind you, for example, in 2004 with the Boxing Day earthquake, Indonesia 9.3, near the time that Venus was in alignment with the Sun and with Mars as well. Other than that, there is no comparison between the 2 configurations. We also see considerable lunar geometry following the planetary convergence here. 45 degrees with Neptune and Saturn. We have conjunctions here, the moon aligning with Mars and with Uranus on the 11th, and also 45 degrees with Mercury and 90 degrees with Venus. Venus, by the way, also at the same time makes a right angle with Earth and with Uranus. So a lot is going to happen here from the 9th to the 11th. Mind you, this is a critical convergence, and we can have pretty large seismic activity. We can have the typical clustering of stronger earthquakes. I suspect around the time of the lunar peak. It could be a bit earlier already. This is really critical convergence here on the 9th. Then on the 13th, Venus, Mercury, Saturn and Sun, Mercury, Earth. Let's have a look at that geometry in the solar system here as well. We have the Earth making 90 degrees, that's with the moon, with Saturn, 45 degrees with Mars and with Uranus, and also 45 degrees with Venus, and then the moon aligns here with Jupiter following the new moon right there. And this is all happening from the 13th to the 15th, mostly around the 14th. That's where most of the lunar geometry happens. But look at the 13th, Sun, Mercury, Earth. We see here the Sun, Mercury and Earth. This is near the time of a new moon, mind you. And Venus, Mercury, Saturn. Venus, Mercury, Saturn. There's a second alignment in just a couple of days where Venus and Mercury are both involved in one alignment. So back to the SGI graph. There are a couple of scenarios here. We could have large seismic activity, possibly even more than 1 magnitude 7 earthquake following the first and second convergence. That's one scenario. It's also possible that nothing much happens at first and that the seismic activity really begins at the second half when the electromagnetic force builds up, and that may result in the largest seismic response around the time of new moon. It very much depends on the condition of Earth's crust. If there is a larger fault section with critical amount of stress, it must have reached the tipping point. But large earthquakes, they do tend to occur with this kind of convergence. So keep in mind that we have 2 times a convergence of planetary geometry, both times followed by lunar peaks. So I'd say be on watch around the 11th in particular, and also around the 14th. It could be earlier already, because this geometry here from the 9th to the 11th is already really critical, and there could be a seismic burst here on the 12th, 13th. It's difficult to say. There is a likelihood of more seismic unrest throughout this time frame, and then of course we have a convergence here on the 17th. That's a bit difficult to estimate because it really much depends on what's going to happen earlier in this time frame. If we're going to have considerable seismic response, it may take out most of the critical stress in this time frame, and maybe nothing much is going to happen here around the 17th. Difficult to say at this point. I'll have to wait with the analysis of that geometry right there. So be on extra alert. This is really a critical time frame. There can be a seismic surprise in there. Again, it could reach a high 7 magnitude, maybe even larger. The geometry is critical. Check out the latest updates on the website and also in our social media channels. Be on extra alert, stay safe, and until next time.